if you want to predict when this lockdown is going to end, then you need to look from not just a business aspect, like I pointed out in my videos the other day. You know, as in terms of the whole world as a business, and there's ways to create predictable patterns in human behavior in order to capitalize off of that. But you also have to look at control, because that's what a lot of it's about as well. And this is like what would be deemed in higher circles is the right crisis, the correct crisis. And once you learn what it's being used for, you know that until that's achieved, what this is being used for, until it's achieved, the ban on communication or the ban on mixing in public and you know, not being housebound anymore won't be lifted. So if you want to actually know when the sort of, what would I say, the deed is done, then you need to look no further than the fact that, you know, MI5 are now in talks with government to try and bring restrictions on, you know, try to create a sort of tracking device for anybody who has been tested positive with COVID-19. Now, if you do see me pause or anything, mine is because I'm in a famous dogging spot. It's only just down the road from my house, but people come in and they give you funny looks as if to say, are you going to come watch us, or can we come watch you do what you have to do, or whatever. So it's a really weird spot. You get a mixture of pensioners who've come just to enjoy the scenery and the lovely views out over the Somerset levels, and then you get the weirdos as well who walk up to your car and look through your window. It's you know, I only found this out a few weeks ago, but my son did say stuff when I was younger. He said he saw a woman flash her boobs at him. He was only about 15, 14, and she was sat on the rocks here flashing the boobs as he drove by. So it's a bit of a funny spot. So if I do pause, you know what it is. Yeah, so going back to the seriousness of what's going on, you know, there's a need to create some sort of tracking. We've always been tracked, everybody knows that. We've never needed any chips or anything like that. We already have them. A friend of mine, so here you go, a friend of mine who, I can't say too much about it because it's all ongoing at the moment. It's an ongoing case, but he is being accused of money laundering. And so all you dealers out there who think that you're clever with these trap phones, you know, the old Nokia brick phones and things like that, and they call them, you know, they nickname them trap phones, and basically, you know, you're using it to not be tracked or anything like that. Did you know that you're being tracked anyway? It's always been there, right from the very first phones, those Nokia bricks with the little areas on the top that you use, they're all trackable. And this is the way that they've come for this guy. I mean, it was a completely oddball situation, really. But basically, they triangulate exactly where you are, exactly where you're driving and what you're doing. Remember that phone is always sending a signal to the tariffs, and you will be in between a triangulated tariff, and they will notice your patterns. Where were you on that night when this happened? In this particular guy's case, it was great big robberies that were going on, like always safe robberies and burglaries, you know, on a big scale. He had nothing to do with it. He just so happened to have dealt with the guys because he owned a shop. He dealt with the guys on a few occasions, and they'd noticed that car that they walked past or drove past in their vehicle his shop with by triangulating their phones as they were following them around. So the ability's always been there, you know. But what's happening now is it's becoming in the forefront. So it was used in special cases, you know. It would be like, you know, what they would deem to be acts of terrorism, which is virtually everything nowadays. It's beginning to be just speaking is an act of terrorism. But what the dangerous side of this now is that, you know, it's been announced that there's going to be measures brought in to track everybody on their phone, whether or not they have this virus, and warn people if they've walked within a certain distance of people who actually have been tested positive for the virus. Now, what? And they say, oh, you know, all the usual spiel when these sort of tracking devices first become legalized. It will obviously for the public to be able to okay it, so say. You know, it has to have very, very strict, stringent measures in place to stop the system being abused. Well, you know, that's just going to fade away over time. That's how they do it. Very first time it comes in, it's all strict, and then it just gets bared away by each crisis. You never waste a crisis. Every time you get a crisis, there's a new set of rules that get relaxed, and eventually you just tracked everything you say and do and where you go, which you are anyway. But I mean, legally they can then use it in law and say, yes, we were legally allowed to track him and this is, or her, and this is what we found. So you know, you're going into that sort of stage now. The worrying part of that is now what you've become now is the coronavirus victim is the new leper. Anybody who's tested positive for coronavirus will be treated in the same way as lepers were, you know, centuries ago. They will be banished from the castles, cities, whatever. They will have to lock themselves up. They will. Once they've had it, they'll find some way, you know, there'll be some way where they're a carrier for life or something like that. And all of a sudden people won't be going anywhere near them. They'll be able to probably look on their phone and see where these red dots are going around and who to avoid. It's quite comical, really, if it wasn't so tragic. And what you're doing is a form of biological racism, if that's the right, or bacterial racism. You know, whatever you want to label it. I mean, it's a way of pinpointing out and labeling another group of society who will be alienated by everybody in the future, and literally alienated. I mean, people will be scared of these people. They will be like red blobs walking around the city, you know. And what will happen is people will stop wanting to be, you know, over the next few years, because you know these cycles come back and back. People will stop going out and actually getting diagnosed with any viruses or anything. On the back of that, obviously, there's another control thing that can be brought in where you know where it's going. We've been talking about this for decades, or you know, or at least years. The likes of everybody who's watching this video, but you know where it's going. It's going down the line of, like, you know, you will never have mandatory vaccines, but you will get your life restricted. You won't be able to fly on a plane, go on a cruise ship, enter certain countries, anything like that, unless you've got a full card with that full vaccination. Maybe that will even be digital, and that will be a digital card to allow you into that next country. It won't actually be just a card. Maybe that will be part of your passport. Maybe you'll get your passport withdrawn and you'll get one. Who knows? Who knows what the possibilities are? I mean, who would have thought we'd have been in this situation now? So you can't really rule out too much. This is not. This is all about learning the rules of engagement. If you can preempt what's happening, that gives you a lot of power, and a lot more control over your life and where you want it to go and what you want to do as a result of all this. And it will give you a way of protecting your family. Trying to there's nothing you can do to stop things from coming into power, because there are too many. We are the few, and it's very true what a good friend of mine said recently, that you don't need to be going out and testing. It's a different video, this one. I will put it out there, but you don't need to be going out there and poking and prodding you know, anybody who's bringing these restrictions on you at the moment. And I'll explain why in another video. I'll make sure I upload this one first though. So yeah, so we've got you know, a bacterial racism about to come on us, and you know, make yourself aware, let yourself see where it's going, and you know, how these restrictions will be brought in, and you will be in a lot better position to look after yourselves and your family, and that's really what's important at the moment. Families need to become very, very close.